Hello there, Will of Williamity here. I got another interview for you today. My guest is Benjamin Capra, author of The Stead Pill, a modern dating guide for traditional men, or it may well be a traditional dating guide for modern men. You decide. I had a chance to pick his brain about some of the great dating advice he has in this book, and we ended up having a great conversation that you don't want to miss. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and keep moving north. Let's start with a general question. Just tell me a little bit about yourself and why you decided to write the Stead Pill.
Yeah, so my name is Benjamin Capra, and I'm the author of The Stead Pill, a modern dating guide for traditional men. And I really felt called to write this book because it was a real eye opener how much I didn't know about women and dating in my 20s, because I spent most of my 20s in a relationship. And, after that ended, I was like 27 when I became single, really for the first time in my adult life. And so I had to struggle and learn the hard way on a lot of stuff. Uh, got ghosted a couple times, got my heart ripped out a couple times, and I just decided, all right, I'm not gonna go through that again. I got to figure this out. Like, what is it that's going on, and how can I course correct? Is it something I'm doing, or is it just bad luck? Turns out it was mostly what I was doing. Right. So I I kind of went down all the rabbit holes of dating advice, pickup artist material, all of this kind of, modern dating stuff, relationship stuff, and saw that it works, but it's still very geared towards this kind of modern hedonistic dating culture that we're in. And yeah, I found success with it, quote unquote success, but it began to feel like shallow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how else to describe it. And all of this was going on as I was learning more about the reality of the world, taking the red pill, so to speak, and also coming to God. I used to be an atheist, and all of these rabbit holes, the way I kind of describe it to people about going down rabbit holes, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but the way I describe it is you're searching for truth, and anyone searching for truth is eventually going to find God, right? Like I describe to people that Jesus is at the bottom of every rabbit hole.
Right.
But kind of big picture, I was doing a lot and learning a lot all at the same time when I started learning about dating. And it was almost like it had to happen this way for me to kind of realize, all right, there's some truth here, and there's a way to do this that aligns with my moral compass. I'm trying to record an audiobook, and so that's a whole process too.
Oh, it's a giant pain, isn't it?
Oh
Just to
yeah,
flub your sentences and re-record the same thing over and over again. It happens to me when I'm reading scripts as well.
I'll do
Uh,
like one long massive take and
yeah,
then just like go through and clip stuff.
yeah. So I'm in a somewhat similar boat that you were. Well, you're a few pages ahead in the story than I am, but I just got out of a 7 year relationship and I'm 32 right now. I gotta. So I'm in the process of figuring out what I was doing wrong and getting back onto the right track. Uh, and I also came to Jesus rather recently, like within the past handful of months. Before we get into that, I want to ask you what the pickup artist world, what they're doing right. One thing that kind of bugs me about them is that they kind of try to appropriate the term red pill to be like the term for dating advice, which is kind of bugs me because like no, if you're red pilled, you're a conspiracy theorist. End of story. But other than that, what do you think that they are getting right?
So generally, I see those guys as having a solid understanding of just that masculine and feminine difference, right? Like an understanding of that nature to the point where um, they know that women don't, the feminine nature doesn't want to have a lot of responsibility and make decisions. And so it's really easy for them to see a strong, confident, masculine guy and then just fall in line. That's just part of that nature. And that's something that they do understand and do that they are right about.
Yeah, and they sort of are able to hack that system a little bit. More importantly, though, and this hopefully this will be obvious to most of the people watching this, but what are the pickup artists getting wrong? More importantly,
I think the biggest thing they're getting wrong is um, one is kind of associating and blending everything they do with kind of the red pill mindset. And I honestly think that there is a lot of overlap there. But something that they get wrong, aside from just their intentions of wanting to just hook up and yeah, so a lot of what is going wrong with the kind of red pilled pickup artist guys is that they don't promote relationships, they don't promote marriage, and a big reason for that is they will point at divorce statistics and pair bonding and as if they're blaming women, and not to sound like a simp or anything, but the reason that we're in this situation and those statistics are out there is because men failed to lead, right? We're several generations away from solid masculine men, right? Like I personally believe that both great world wars were designed to just eliminate entire generations of masculine men, and we don't have that presence, that masculine strong father figure. There's a lot of bad stuff that comes from that, including effeminate men who over venerate the mom, and you have a lot of women that don't know what to look for, right? And so it all just kind of snowballs
mm.
and gets worse and worse and worse, right? And so we're like several generations into this now, and it's awful. So that's one of the reasons I wrote this, but it's the kind of pointing and blaming at divorce statistics and pair bonding and just kind of blaming women for stuff is just completely one-sided. And honestly, it's kind of ironic because those same guys, that are ranting about those statistics, they have no idea the effect of pornography on marriage. A lot of them will be addicted to porn. And the fact that porn is a huge, huge cited reason for divorce from women, but they're just ignoring it like it's not an issue, but it is, right? And there's, ton of bad stuff associated with it, and cause and effect from watching pornography. But it's just ironic, really, that
Yeah,
a lot of these guys, will rant about pair bonding statistics while they're like out engaging in hookup culture, but would only consider marrying a no tattoos, trad virgin woman, when he's still also addicted to pornography. Like
yeah,
there's this huge ironic imbalance there too.
yeah. I remember bringing it up to my now ex-wife that I remember saying something like, "Oh, I should really strongly consider quitting pornography." And she kind of scoffed at the idea. I was a little bit surprised, but then I realized that she was addicted to pornography in her own sort of way as well. Like if I had been following a lot of this Stead pill type of advice sooner, it probably would have driven her away, and it would have been the right thing to do. But that was, I guess, it was my path to learn that the hard way, I guess. So, what in just a few sentences, what is the Stead pill?
So the Stead pill is the positive alternative to the red pill. right? The red pill just points out fear and negativity, and really it's just a black pill of dread and despair, right? It's I see it as a big lie, something to keep men trapped, right? Like the best lies are a little bit of truth, but surrounded with a lot of false. And I see that awesome. I see that ultimately as the red pill, as it's I made a fun meme about the astronaut meme, right?
Hmm.
With the one with the gun to the head. And the
Yeah.
one astronaut's like, wait, the red pill was a psyop to keep men unproductive and from getting married and having families? The other guy's like, always was, right?
Always was.
But yeah, it's a positive alternative to the red pill. It's accepting the truth of what's out there and the truth and reality of the world, but rather than just harping on it and just ranting about the negativity and how the world's going to end and all of this, like every other video you see on like Infowars or something.
Hmm.
The
Or
Stead
BitChute.
pill, yeah, the Stead pill is a focus on, all right, that's true, but now what?
Right. Uh,
So what do I do about it?
yeah.
How do I move forward?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people. It feels to me, I don't know if this is just because I'm recently converted Christian, but it feels to me like more and more people are coming to Jesus. Like yourself, you went through the atheist to Christianity pipeline, as did I, and I sort of feel like I'm hearing more and more of those kinds of stories. Is it just us, or is there a movement toward faith going on
I
in
think
the
there's
West
a
right now?
I think there's a genuine revival happening right now. And I didn't grow up with all these, Christianese terms, that like my wife did. And she doesn't like all those Christianese terms anyway, so it
Hmm.
works out great. But I genuinely think that it aligns perfectly with everyone searching for truth and meaning and eventually finding it in the Bible, right?
Right.
They say, if you seek me, you shall find me, or however it's quoted in the Bible.
Yeah, like discovering more about what truth is and what morality is, and then seeing that reflected in the Bible, and then wondering, oh, well, what else is this book correct about?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's like what I was saying earlier about how at the bottom of every rabbit hole you find Christ eventually,
yeah,
because the process of going down a rabbit hole is by its nature an investigation for truth.
right. So I read the Stead Pill book. I'm actually on my second read through of it right now, and you use
Nice.
this narrative framing device of Joe throughout the story. Like Joe was this way, and then Joe did these things to improve himself. That sort of narrative thread runs throughout the book. I'm sure you found that in like a writing advice article or something like that. But to what extent is Joe semi autobiographical, and to what extent is it like you were just exaggerating how awful Joe was in the beginning and how great he turned out in the end?
Uh, yeah, it was a narrative suggestion from the editor to include something like that,
Mm-hmm.
because originally my rough draft had a lot of my personal story, right? And after kind of some introspection and discussion, and my wife read through it, and it was like, all right, we don't want that much about my life and us, our relationship
Mm-hmm.
history to be made public like this. So yeah, I took the editor's advice and um, made a couple characters to weave throughout the whole book, just to show kind of like a parallel of what your average Joe would be learning
Mm-hmm.
as he goes through the book, right? So Joe is you're pretty accurate in that assumption. Joe is pretty semi autobiographical, right? And that I do see some of my past in Joe, right? Not necessarily his starting point where he projected a lot of his feelings onto the girl he liked, but there are a lot of guys that do that. and it is a big problem, right? That projection is just a lack of awareness and a lack of understanding, female attraction.
Sure.
But again, the reason I wrote this is that a lot of this isn't taught to young men.
Right. You also use the example in the book of the concept of the gamma male. Now, I talked about the gamma male concept a little bit in one of my recent videos about the social hierarchy in the film Seven Samurai, where that film gives a depiction of a gamma who's sort of a troublemaker, but who ends up redeeming himself by the end. Which is a really flattering depiction of what a gamma is. Could you explain in more in your words what is a gamma male and what makes them so awful, and why you should endeavor to destroy your own gamma tendencies, whoever you may be?
Yeah, the term gamma male is essentially, and I'm sure you covered this, but it's essentially what most people refer to as a beta male,
Yeah.
right? It's a low status, effeminate insult for a man, right? It's basically calling him a girl or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? But really, a gamma is it's a one of the lowest ranks in the social hierarchy, right? You've got the alphas at the top. They're the CEOs, the natural leaders, popular with everybody, good at making decisions. Then you have the bravos, right? Not betas, but bravos. They are the lieutenants
Mm-hmm.
of the alpha. They're also high status, also attractive, also usually in shape. However, they lack the ambition to lead, right? The way to think about the Bravo is that they are the goose to the Maverick Alpha,
Yeah.
right? To make a Top Gun analogy there. They can be decision makers, but they tend to not perform to the level of the alphas, but they will thrive in a position where they're given direction instead of leadership. Then below that, you have the deltas, and the deltas are the backbone of society. It's the average Joe. And that's really the target audience of this book. The deltas want to just go to work and do a good job and get recognized for it, right? Like they want respect for what they do and what they
Right.
can do.
Yeah.
Uh,
Vox Day's description of the Delta. I mean he broke ground on a lot of this socio-sexual hierarchy stuff, but I think his description of the Delta leaves a lot to be desired. Like, I think he says something like, "Oh, they're they're bound to be unsatisfying to their mate," or something like that. I'm probably
it's,
exaggerating what he said, but
I
it's good to
think,
be a Delta.
yeah, it's great to be a Delta. And then Deltas just don't naturally understand a lot about women, and because they are not as flamboyantly confident as the Alpha or the Bravo, right? They're not displaying as much masculinity for women. So, in general, deltas tend to be less successful with women. However, they absolutely do make the best husbands and fathers because they are very determined to do a good job. They're very supportive, right? And they're going to be good dads. Um, but yeah, it's just the that kind of it's that aspect of hypergamy
Mm-hmm.
that makes deltas be the unfortunate, not frequently the target of a woman's attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And so really my book is just trying to help deltas kind of figure it out and up their game so they can have a better shot. Because with the modern dating culture the way it is, there's a lot of fake alphas and whatever that are out there that are just running and gunning and ruining a woman's pair bonding ability.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, that's one thing that irks me about the pickup artists. To return to that topic just for a little bit, but when I was getting out of my relationship, I was watching some of the pickup artist stuff, and some of it's all right advice, but there's always like they're always telling you to avoid women who are riding the carousel. And then whenever they say that, I feel like shaking them by the shoulders, like you are the carousel.
Oh yeah, it's one of those ironies. And another irony is that the pickup artist will sit there and complain about feminism, but they are causing feminism.
Yeah,
Like it's their behavior that is causing women to not like and distrust men.
exactly.
And so it's one of those big ironies. But yeah, it's a whole topic that we could spend all night on.
Yeah.
But basically the gammas they are the bottom of the chain, right? They tend to be more intelligent than anyone else, right? They'll be subject matter experts about whatever it is, but they hate being at the bottom of the chain.
Mm-hmm.
They're usually less attractive. They're usually overweight. They're usually socially awkward. And then they hate that they are not as good as the alpha in the eyes of others, right? But rather than confront that, they tend to be passive aggressive and conflict avoidant, and they're just prone to sarcasm, right? Like one of the best descriptors I ever heard was, I don't know if it was Owen or Vox that said it, but the secret king.
Yeah, that's a Voxism for sure.
Yeah, yeah. That descriptor is absolutely perfect, where no one knows it, but really he's the king. He's on top. It's like, oh, but you'll see one day. You'll see, I'll be on top one day. And then they always try to identify as like sigmas, which are like the lone wolf alpha that's outside of the hierarchy, right? Like a sigma male is like the gamma male's kind of wet dream, right? Because it's a way to identify with like a high intellect, high status man. But really the gamma is still obsessed with his position in the hierarchy, and he wants to be that high status male. Like a sigma like Vox just doesn't care.
Yeah.
He's like, I do not care about this. I'm going to do my own thing and I'm going to be successful at it.
Yeah, there's a lot of sigma male type content on YouTube that's just so cringy, and
they're gammas.
It feels
they're all gammas.
Feels like
and
it's coming from a very gamma
artists,
place. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of pickup artists will talk about being sigma and all this, and they're all gammas.
Yeah.
Like it's absurd. But
yeah, to want to be a pickup artist is a very that's got to come from a gamma place as well.
Yeah, it's an insecurity thing.
Yeah, and I'm to be honest, I'm sort of a recovered or recovering gamma myself. I like
same.
when I think back to like my high school years, and I hear the description of the gamma, I was like, oh, that was me back then. That's why I was acting the way I was, and then
that was me in middle school. Yeah, I got bullied for
sure.
It.
Yeah, and then life throws us a few curveballs, and we learn how to deal with it and step more into a more delta type of sphere.
Yeah, but, and it is possible for a gamma to move up the ladder and become a delta. But it starts with just brutal honesty.
Yeah. Right? That's one of the themes to Seven Samurai that I brought up in that video essay I did. I want to move on to the topic of well, let me put it this way. In different parts of the country, there's different costs of living. And I think that there's a correlation between the regional cost of living and what they call sexual marketplace value. So currently I'm living in Los Angeles, which is it's an awful, terrible place. I like to call it a human storm drain. But there's just so many.
It's okay, but I'm living just outside of Portland, so
geez.
Yeah, ugh. I'm right in the muck with you.
That's almost worse. So women are basically attracted to like an upper percentile of men. And there are so many men in Los Angeles, for example, that there's no way that I'm going to be in the upper percentile of everybody who wants to be somebody or is somebody in this town. But in a couple months, I'm moving to Davenport, Iowa, and I'm pretty confident that I can scrape my way into the top percentile of men in Davenport, Iowa. And to that end, I'm working on getting a shape. I got this book, Complete Calisthenics.
Nice.
Great book. I'm working out every
Nice.
day.
That's good, man. Body weight stuff is, slow and controlled. It's the how the ancient Spartans trained.
Yeah, yeah. And you in the Stead Pill book, you gave a few suggestions for some calisthenics books as well, like people who were a few books about people who were in solitary confinement and got
Yeah,
in
it
shape
was
that way.
convict conditioning, I think,
Yeah,
or something like that, where yeah, the guy spent 20 years in prison and he would take a new inmate under his wing and train them so that they could fight for their life, literally. Right. And so it was like all about how to get as much strength, like actual usable strength as possible, as fast as possible.
hmm
And it's
I might
all,
move on to something like that once I've mastered the basics.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, I can sum it up for you. The whole book right now is just 10 movements, calisthenic movements like push ups, sit ups, squats, leg raises, couple others. I think there's a back bend in there, handstands, and it's all about just really slow, right? Like we're talking 20 seconds down on a push up and you hold for a few seconds and then like, you know, a few seconds to get back up. So there's zero momentum.
I
And it's
see.
kind of like if you've ever held a plank for a minute, you're like the whole body is trembling by the end of it.
Yeah.
Same thing with all these exercises.
Yeah, that's a little bit different from like my martial arts background. It's sort of about explosive power and just wham 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 getting them done as fast as possible. So maybe I have to unlearn a little bit of that.
I
Uh
think there might be there's probably a good balance that's good for you, but that was just that one author's suggestion, and but yeah, as far as workouts go, I like lifting weights myself, but
mm,
and then I did a lot of when I got in shape and really elevated myself in the market, so to speak. I did a long distance backpacking hike, and that's why I talk about it in the book.
yeah.
Is that it's an option that I didn't hear of until I needed to hear about it, and basically, it's you get time to go figure yourself out in the wilderness. You're hiking thousands of miles, and you're just you're just shedding pounds like it's nothing, right? Like it's I lost like a pound a day when I did the
Wow.
Appalachian Trail. Yeah, it was crazy. I was way overweight. I could barely carry my pack when I first started. I was God, I like thinking back to that. I think my first day I did 8 miles and I felt like, what have I done? And then the next day I only did 5 miles. And then the next day I only did 3 miles, but I didn't stop. And, after about a couple of weeks, you get your trail legs and your endurance is going up and all of this. And all of a sudden, okay, I can do 10 miles regularly a day. Okay, now I can do 15 a day. Okay, now I'm able to do 20 a day,
hmm
right? Like hiking 20 miles through the mountains all day, every day, right? That's a pretty solid place to be at fitness wise. And your body just eventually just gets into this state, where you're burning everything.
Yeah.
We call it hiker hunger, where you have like this black hole in your stomach, and you'll burn 10,000 calories a day. And so
Wow.
it's just like you can eat literally anything and some really disgusting combinations of stuff just to get some calories in you.
Yeah.
Uh, and then, yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
that's
I'm not hiking the Appalachian Trail or anything, but I do find, I'm having a similar experience calisthenically where like I I guess you can't see them. I got some pull-up bars back there And when I first got them a couple weeks ago, I could barely do one pull up, and just this morning I was able to do five in a row, like no
Nice, dude.
problem.
That's huge. Not like most people can't even do one.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's huge. And as far as like just thinking back to the whole discussion about hypergamy, like being where you're at versus where you could be, kind of discussion. It's good to try to raise your market value, so to speak, wherever you are,
yeah,
right? And it's not it's hard to describe, but it's like the motivation is to find a good woman to marry, right? But ultimately the the discipline of following through has nothing to do with that, right? It's this is the standard of who I am and what I expect of myself, right?
right.
Like that is a much stronger motivation that's renewable than trying to make yourself the top 20%, you know,
Yeah. Now
sexual marketplace value.
I get the sense that you've done quite a bit of traveling around the country. Do you have any suggestions of what kinds of places are better to be looking for women? I get the sense that cities are horrible, and like small to medium size cities and towns are probably a lot better. But is there anything you can confirm about that?
Well, sure, small cities and towns are great because you've got a it's like it's a double-edged sword. You've got a lower population, but they tend to already have a lot of the values you're looking for. Downside is that lower population means you have a lower probability of finding someone who is who you're looking for and who wants to be with you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's kind of like one of those big ironies of everyone assuming that, you got to go rural and small town to find a good woman. But the reality is the majority of single women are found in those, smaller, large cities. And a good portion of those women do actually dream of a rural family life like they see on Instagram and Pinterest and HGTV or shows like Yellowstone, right? Like there is this rising dream happening that women are kind of like city women are just kind of starting to um, maybe not think about it, but they're feeling it,
Mm-hmm.
and they know that they want something like that,
Right.
right? And so it's one of those things that maybe they don't express vocally, but when they find a good guy who wants to be a dad
Mm-hmm.
and
And
have
who
a bunch
maybe
of
gives
kids,
permission to express those
yeah,
kinds of thoughts, because our society certainly doesn't. Our
yeah,
society wants everyone to go to college and get a career, and even if that's not what you're cut out for.
yeah. It's like when she finds a guy that wants all of that, you're gonna stick out because a lot of guys just they're not gonna vocalize
Yeah,
that. They don't have a clue. But guys who learn the Stead pill process are going to be in a position where they will stand out from everyone else just by the fact that they're upfront and honest with their intentions, right? Like that's going to be huge, and it's also a natural deterrent from women that you wouldn't match with,
yeah,
right? Like it accompanies the idea that you want to embrace rejection because rejection is just speeding things up,
yeah.
right? You're not wasting your time with someone who doesn't want to be with you.
Right. Yeah, yeah. That's one of the pieces of advice in the book that's is one of the things that sort of resonated with me for a really long time. Like that's what I would like do my best to turn on the charm with whoever fell in my lap and wanted to spend time with me, because you don't want to be trying to spend time with someone who doesn't want to be spending time with you.
Yeah, yeah. Like think of it this way: would you rather would you rather end up with someone who only kind of liked you, and you had to kind of persuade to go on that first date? Or would you rather, spend your time with someone that was like, when do I get to see you again?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, why would you ever accept less than that? And when you have this focus and this mindset of I'm out here with intention, I know what I'm worth, and I know what I'm looking for, it makes it easy to embrace rejection as that woman doing you a favor,
Right.
right? Because
Exactly.
she's not wasting your time and you're not wasting hers. And time is the most valuable thing we have.
Right.
My piece of advice on location is don't discount the cities, right? The higher population means you've got a drastically higher chance of meeting a woman who's right for you than if you were to date in a town of, 5 to 10,000 people.
Mm.
So it's worth looking around while you're near a big city. Like, take advantage of the population.
Right. For me, I'm more than happy to discount the cities.
Yeah.
But
Well, LA is a little big for me, and
yeah,
like I call Portland the big city, and my wife is like, "What are you talking about? This place is tiny."
yeah. The city I'm moving to is it's a pseudo urban area of about like 100 to 200,000 people, which is a pretty good chunk of
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Good
Yeah, no, I was
great
talking
fishing
more
waters.
like guys that want to, before they meet someone special, they want to just move out to the boonies and then hope they run into a girl there.
Hmm.
And it's like
Slim
probably not the
chance.
smartest use of your time, like on the dating guide uh, app on or the dating guide channel on Telegram. There was a guy that was asking my advice, and he was living in London, but he was going to move to like this little town in Scotland with like 400 people. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like you're just literally removing yourself from millions, millions of potential matches,
Right.
right? Putting yourself in a position where there's maybe 3 women there that are eligible, right? Like the odds of one of them being the person you're meant to find are very slim.
Right.
So it's just an acknowledgement of the reality of population density and not taking that for granted when you live next to a near a big city.
Yeah. Now that sort of brings me to one of the most counterintuitive strains of advice in the book is that online dating is good, actually. Which now I've never dated online in my life, so that's going to be a completely new experience for me when I get around to it. But I understand you met your wife on Tinder, which is like the
Yes.
most counterintuitive thing that I can imagine. Because Tinder is supposedly
Yeah.
like in the last interview I did, we literally, um, Dave the distributist and I literally mentioned Tinder as like, oh, it's just Grinder for straight people, and Grinder is for gay people.
Yeah.
So can you make this make sense to me?
Yeah. Yeah. So we are citizens of the age of information, right? And we have a huge privilege to have this communication network, right? These are all just tools, right? It's how you use the tool that matters. Tinder is, I'm pretty sure it's the world's biggest dating app now,
Hmm.
right? And it used to be just for hookups, right? Like that was how they marketed it originally, was like, just casual sexual encounters kind of thing. But now it's just a dating app.
Hmm.
And a lot of young people have grown up with technology and iPhones and apps, and it's a completely normal thing for them, and they assume that dating apps are where you go to date people, right? So there's a lot of people using it. And like I was saying before, it's the intention you put behind it, right? Like you can set up your profile to attract the right kind of person, and you can have that intentionality kind of up front with people. Just as you can if you were there to, no strings attached, whatever kind of disgusting risk you were going to take with some stranger that night. You can also be on there like, hey, I'm looking for something special. It's all about the intention, and it's just a tool, right? I look at dating apps and dating sites as an ability for us, an advantage for us to be able to cast a wide passive fishing net, right? And I say passive specifically because have you ever seen the show Alone?
I don't see a lot of shows.
Okay, well, there's a reality TV series. It's pretty awesome. They take a bunch of wilderness survival people, and they have like a list of items that they can pick to take with them.
Is this Naked and Alone, but not naked?
No, it's not Naked and Afraid. It's Naked and Afraid. It's called Alone.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they take these are actual wilderness survival experts, and they let them get a bag of gear, and they literally dropped them off in the middle of nowhere and say, all right, the last person to tap out wins $500,000, right? But in that show, a lot of them will choose to bring along some kind of net. And a big strategy they use is by setting the net out in the water, they are not actively, passively fishing while they're able to do other more important stuff. Right? So it's the same principle here, where you can cast a digital passive net with these apps and dating profiles, right? That you're not actively just sitting there staring at the net. You put the net in the water and you leave it there, and you go out and, try to meet people in person, pursue your career, whatever it is that you're building. You focus on that, and then maybe spend 5, 10, 20 minutes a day just scrolling through to see if you got any matches.
Because what the pickup people call cold approach is a completely different animal. Now I have a few filter phrases that I jotted down to see, like, maybe I just want your opinion on how good some of these filter phrases might be for filtering out the wrong kind of women. So if, for example, you said not looking for hookups.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to put on the app just up front.
I'm starting simple, and I'm going to get a little bit more daring and complex as they go along. The second would be, I want to build a family.
I would say a better way to phrase that would be to put I want kids someday. Right? Because, like, I want to build a family could be interpreted as like, oh, this guy's really like gonna be pushy about it,
puts the pressure on, I guess.
Yeah. So, like, I want kids someday is a lot less pressure than I want to build a family.
Even if what you really mean is, I want a whole softball team worth of kids as soon as possible.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you're not specifying what length of time someday is. So
yeah. Now, I'm not gonna say this word, but it rhymes with unschmaxinated.
I think for a lot of people that are unschmaxinated, and it's an important attribute that they're looking for in a partner, I do think it's worth putting that up there. Right? I would suggest not focusing on it in the sense of, like, making that the most important thing that sticks out on the dating profile. Right?
Like, maybe sneak it in toward the end.
Yeah, maybe like just a little thing at the end there. And again, that's if that's one of those must-haves, right, that you're looking for.
Right. And to be honest, I'm not sure if it is or isn't. Because I mean, there's a lot of catastrophizing out there right now about the schmaxinations. that it's a little bit the waters are a bit muddy to know just exactly.
Yeah, and a lot of women are apparently starting to lie about it.
Hmm.
So there's no real way to guarantee um,
Yeah.
that quality,
I'm
really.
I'm sure YouTube doesn't want
Like,
us to stay on this topic for too long,
yeah,
but
yeah.
the last filter phrase I have would be "Yay 24."
I think that would be something funny. And, I think it's worth putting something humorous on there,
Yeah,
right? Um, because you'll get all kinds of reactions from that, right? Like someone will match just to be like, "Are you serious?" And then someone might match to be like, "Oh my God, that's hilarious. It was so funny,
I'm not
oh
joking.
yeah, yeah." And I mean, you don't have to like just hammer home that like, "Oh yeah, I'm all about it, blah blah blah, all
Yeah,
this," right? But I think that's something funny that while you are being honest and upfront can be taken lightly.
yeah.
And I think that would be a fun filter.
All right, that's good. That's good.
I personally recommend keeping like dating app profiles really simple, right? You want like a 5 or 6 just good photos. Like you want like a full body shot. So you're just honest about how you look, but you want nicely, not like overly dressed,
Hmm.
but a nice presentation outfit. And you want a genuine smile.
Yeah,
And a few of those photos, it would be good to be, doing an activity you enjoy. And then one with like some friends or family,
yeah.
or something like that.
One doing like a pull up, one like with a bow and arrow or something
You
like
could do
that.
you could do one for each of your calisthenic exercises.
Yeah, one with the with the nunchucks. Maybe not the
Oh man.
nunchucks.
I just had this idea of like imagine swiping through a dating app and you're looking at the different photos, and like the first photo is pulling the bow back, and then the next photo is the arrow,
Yeah.
and it's just like the third photo is the arrow, then the fourth is the arrow, then the fifth one is like it hitting a target with a heart on it or something. Like that would be kind of cheesy and cute.
That'd be super cheesy, but I'll bring it
I
into consideration.
Yeah, I again just keep it short and sweet. Hey, I'm Joe. I'm a 24-year-old engineer that likes going on adventures.
Mhm.
I love my dog, but I think my cat hates me, and I want kids someday.
Right.
Right? Like that's short and sweet. The word adventure is always a good thing to put in there because it's very vague,
Mm.
right? But like shooting a bow and arrow can be an adventure for somebody.
Yeah.
Right? Like you could easily make like a little course of targets in the woods, and all of a sudden it's this adventure that you're going on.
Oh, you're too good at these ideas, man. I would never think of that. I want. There's a handful of pieces of advice in the book that really jumped out at me. Like I wish I knew this 10 years ago, sort of thing. And one of those was, if you feel like you can kiss her, you could have kissed her 10 minutes ago. Is How did you discover that one? Is that
It
an
speaks
advice
for
you heard
itself.
somewhere?
It speaks for itself. I didn't come up with that term originally. I believe I heard that term from Mark Manson, but it really does speak for itself, and
Mm.
it highlights how men are just oblivious to a lot of body language, right?
Hmm.
Like we're not aware of how much a woman is communicating her either interest or lack of interest to us. And so it's one of these little nuggets of wisdom that just kind of helps you get the perspective shift of dating, right? Like to be successful in dating. And so if you are starting to learn about body language and looking at these signs of attraction, and you're paying attention to them on the date, and you're starting to spot them, and you feel like, okay, I might be able to go for the kiss now, you could have kissed her 10 minutes ago.
Mm. Yeah. Uh, the next one would be the idea of setting deadlines for major decisions in the dating process. Like, like after 3 dates you should know whether you're gonna keep dating her or not, and after like I don't know if you said 3 months, like after 3 months you should be sure whether you want to like actually. I don't want to put words in your mouth,
Yeah, yeah.
but walk me through what some of those later deadlines would be.
So the main deadline here is just having that 3 date limit, right? To make a decision on continuing to date this person, and pursue them exclusively with the intention of building a relationship, to see if it can lead to a proposal and marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you are intentionally making that call. All right, I've been around this person enough to know enough about them to where I should be able to make an informed decision. And if by the end of the third date, assuming you've done, my 3 date or yeah, my 3 date strategy, right? The three or sorry, three
The
stage
structured,
date.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was actually my next bullet point was structuring the multi-stage date. Just
Yeah.
by I figure like I was already like looking at the map of Davenport, Iowa, and sort of figuring out where all the clusters of cool things to do are, so that you can
Yeah.
like maybe start the date in one location, then move to another and another uh, based on what comes to mind.
Yeah, yeah, I recommend having a couple of those dates that you just have in your back pocket, right?
Mm-hmm.
So specifically because if you're out and about in person and you meet someone and you say, "Hey, I think you're really cute and I want to get to know you. When are you free to meet up for a coffee or a drink?" Right? And then if they like you, she'll tell you, "Oh, I'm a free tonight or Wednesday." And then you already have a response in your back pocket prepared of like, great, I know this awesome little cafe, this little Italian cafe. Let's meet there from espresso, and I'll see you at 5:30 or
Sure.
something. Right, so you've already got something in your back pocket ready to go. And that does make you stand out
Mm-hmm.
as a guy, because in those little moments right there, um, you will be measured against the other guys who are just asking her, "Oh, would you maybe want to go out sometime?" um, you're like, "No, hey, I like you, let's meet at this place at this time." And so having those pre-planned out events and dates in your back pocket really help you out a lot. It takes a lot of pressure off you in the
Mm-hmm.
evening too. Like if you already know the game plan in your head, there's not going to be that awkward moment of, "Oh, I don't know. Do you want to go somewhere else?"
Yeah, you
It's
already know where you're
like,
going next.
yeah, you already know. And she's getting to enjoy her feelings and live in the moment.
Right.
And that's a big thing for women is wanting to feel everything as the evening unfolds. So yeah, it's do exactly what you just said, where spend some time on Google Maps looking at different things in the area, kind of map out some walking directions and see how long it is or how far it is,
Yeah. See if there's
just so
any
you can kind
nice
of have.
nice parks to walk through on the way.
Yeah, yeah, and just maybe scout out the locations beforehand, just to go have a coffee at this coffee shop before you plan on taking someone there,
Yeah.
right? Just to test the waters and see if you like it or not, and then to see how far it is from the next place you were considering,
Yeah.
and how
Uh,
long that walk is. So
speaking of
there's a little homework that goes into this,
yeah,
but it does pay off, to the point where if you've already made these decisions ahead of time, like I said, you're not having to worry about it in the moment, and you can just be in the moment on the date with her and really focus on figuring out who she is, and if you guys have a solid connection, and if she meets, the criteria, the qualities of person you're looking for.
yeah. Speaking of the back pocket, I had this idea. Like, how they have those Or maybe I got this idea from your book, and I'm fooling myself. But you know how they have those card games with conversation topics on them,
Yeah,
and you just
yeah.
draw a
I
card and
I think I mentioned that in my book.
yeah.
Um,
What if I just have like a small deck of conversation topic cards and just like pull one out of my pocket like at random times, like okay, let's talk about this now. Is that is that a positive strategy, or is that too cheesy?
I would say for a first date, it might be a little cheesy, but it's anything that can engage good conversation,
Mm,
right? Like if you're not quite at the point where you can ask open-ended questions, because that does take some reprogramming, right? To just not ask like one-word answer questions, like um, where were you born, or what year were you born, or what city were you born in? Like
hmm
those are all just like one-word questions, right? So asking something like, what are you passionate about? Right? Like I guarantee you that's on all of those conversation card games
Yeah.
is that question. And those questions are great because they can like lead into you figuring more out about her and finding out if she, checks some of your boxes. But I recommend, honestly, it's a fun date activity. Maybe not the first date, but it could be fun on the first date. There's that, the science trademarked uh, came up with 36 questions that are supposedly guaranteed to make someone fall in love.
Yeah,
And
I've done that test before. Ended up not working, funnily enough,
but it can be
but
a
it's
fun
yeah,
thing
it's a
to
fun way
like
to
if
spend
you had
time.
it printed out and you'd be like, hey, I don't know if you heard about this, but supposedly if we ask each other these questions, it'll make someone fall in love. So let's see if it's right or not.
Mm,
Right? Like, are you game? That can be a fun night, and it can lead to a lot of good conversations. And maybe you guys get off topic and start a whole other conversation and completely forget about the questions and stuff. So
right.
I like those little card games, and I think it's good to have them, even if it's just practicing, or not practicing, but like kind of you can use them as kind of like flashcards too. It's like, what are good questions to ask on a first date?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, it makes for a funny sight gag if you actually pull one out of your pocket, but it's probably just as well to just memorize the questions.
I
Um,
think I think if you can pull off the sight gag, if you're paying attention and she's got a fun sense of humor, and you've already made a joke about something, and you'd be like, well, guess what? I got our next topic right here.
yeah.
That could
So,
be fun.
yeah. So, uh, we got to talk a little bit about sexuality because, as we're all aware, we live in pervert world, um, and so many people, like on the apps, are just trying to get laid, and that sort of assumption is built into a lot of the interactions that women have with men in the first place. Um, and as Christian men, we're called not to fornicate, but as modern American men, fornication is sort of built into the
Culture.
yeah, it's sort of built into the
Yeah.
expectations of dating. So like and you did touch about on this a little bit in the book, but essentially I'd like you to elaborate, like, should men be the ones to be delaying sex? When should we be the thought patrol or the horny police or whatever you want to call it? And and yeah, can you riff on that a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah. So 100% men lead the interaction, right? Like it's our responsibility to lead, and that includes whether or not we escalate physically, right? So when it comes to choosing not to engage in sexual behavior during the dating process, it's actually not as difficult as people would assume, right? Because women are still waiting for that moment for you to take the lead and the initiative to advance things to the bedroom, right? So even if you find yourself dating a girl and you take her back to her house at the end of the date, and then you end up in her bedroom and you're making out, right? And things are kind of getting steamy. Take a second, go to the bathroom, right? Look in the mirror, realize what you're doing, and then you go back out and you, after you've collected yourself, you tell her, I think I need to go. I had a great time. And she'll very likely want to see you again.
Mm.
So that's a good sign. But it's also letting her know that you're also displaying some self-control, right? And if she asks about it, you can elaborate if you want, that you'd rather just kind of take things slow, that you like her and you want to get to know her more. And that will actually make her, assuming she's got a healthy self-esteem, saying something like that will make her like you more.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
I feel
So
like it used to be the other way around, when women would want to like stymie off the sexual advances, but if men are trying to reestablish our smashed patriarchy, then we should probably it makes sense to start.
taking responsibility for
Yeah,
a lot.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. And that's really, one of the hard pitches I make in the book is is I'm trying to sell personal accountability here.
Hmm.
And hopefully it was funny enough. But it's when it comes to not engaging in sex, right? A good thing to do is when you're in that bathroom is look yourself in the eyes and ask yourself, is she going to be my wife?
Yeah,
And if the answer is I don't know, then leave.
yeah.
Right?
I,
Like it's up to you to
as
keep
a
it in your
matter of
pants.
fact, I did end up writing a list of the things that she needs to be and the things that would be deal breakers. And the last thing on my need list is like she very probably likely should be the last woman I ever have sex with.
Yeah.
Um, I
Yeah. I think that's a good thing to put on the I try not to phrase it like needs on that side. It's more of like this is the ideal of who I'm looking for rather than like I need this.
So
Because
wants versus needs.
yeah, I would label it wants
Okay,
instead of
I'm
needs.
gonna change that right now from
I would say the
needs.
needs the needs should be more geared towards like what are your deal breakers, like absolute, like not gonna work out, like is she an atheist Antifa member or something,
Yeah,
right? Like that's a need, not gonna not gonna end up with someone like that. It's understandable. That's non-negotiable, right? um but a lot of what guys assume are the positive need list really are just, it's like a wants guideline, right? And understanding, as you get more experience dating, you'll find yourself rearranging that list.
yeah. And the inverse of a need list would be the deal breakers, because I noticed that a lot of my deal breakers were just antonyms of things that were on the need list.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to phrase it. So you have your wants, and then you've got your deal breakers, which are just the negative phrasing of your needs.
Yeah, because no one's gonna be everything that you want, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and then it's good to keep in mind that when you go through that exercise, um, if you have if you are hell bent on finding someone that checks literally every single box, right, and you've got 30 boxes,
yeah.
it's
You're
not
not.
going to
Yeah,
happen. Yeah, like statistically, like maybe if you're Leonardo DiCaprio, you'll find that person, right? But statistically, that's not going to happen. So if you have it like a top 10, right, and you kind of rank them in order of importance, right, and again, edit as you go, um, you're going to find someone that has at least 7 of them, right? Like she might have the top 3, and then like she doesn't have 4, but she'll have 5, 6, and 7, and then not have like 8 or 9, but then have 10,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's awesome, right? So being able to have that worded out of like, ideally I'd love to have these, but it's like the it's like the Pirates Code and Pirates of the Caribbean.
Really
They're
more
more
like
like
guidelines.
guidelines.
Yeah.
The actual hardline stuff is the deal breaker list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the last question that I have is not directly related to the book, but it's more of a philosophical question that I've been bouncing around in my head for a little while, and that's the concept of male virginity itself. Um, Now, looking into the history of the word virgin, in its earliest form, it referred to an unwed, unspoiled woman, and then the idea of a male virgin comes in like later, but not recently, like 1500 or something like that. I forget exactly when, but well, do you have an opinion on that? Like, is the concept of male virginity a psyop of some kind to make us think differently of ourselves in some way?
Wait, so what was the original definition? It was unspoiled, unmarried
Um,
female.
Let me pull it up on Edom Online here, my favorite website. Yeah, circa 1200, unmarried or chaste woman noted for religious piety and having a position of reverence in the church. So, I mean, to chop that down a bit, that's basically the our current definition of a woman, but who hasn't had sex before, and and I think the application, like this is one of the key parts about it that began bugging me about it, is that applying the label of virginity to men sort of makes us think that there's something we have to lose, that we have to cash in, like we gotta cash in our V card. I think that's what one of the expressions is, and it sort of encourages us to sexual immorality before.
It's an interesting thought because when you hear someone like Stefan Molyneux talking about the or Lauren Southern even talking about how with sexual market value, how the cliche of women are born rich but die poor, and men are born poor but die rich, and that has to do with like what we're seen as, what we're valued for, right? Like what women are valued for is, youth, beauty, fertility, chastity, all of that, right? And they're born with all of that. Hence why they're born wealthy, but it diminishes over time. And then men are valued for strength and security and being able to provide resources. And we don't have any of that at birth,
Mhm.
right? We have to earn all of that. And so I don't know technically how that word could apply to men.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Like
I
I
don't
said,
know how it would.
I think
That's an
male
interesting
virginity is a
thought.
psyop of some kind, like one of those things that we haven't noticed that it's fake and gay yet, or for the most part. Because
Yeah.
whenever I bring this up to people on the internet, depending on what crowd I'm talking to, it's like the first thing that comes to people's minds are, oh, you're just saying that because you're a virgin. It's like, well, no, I kind of wish I was,
I think
honestly,
I
but
think it's used as like a false, like losing your V card is uh, like a rite of passage almost, where
yeah,
it's like that's the modern equivalent of becoming a man. When I see that as nonsense, and I see becoming a man is when you accept personal accountability for your life and your decisions, right?
yeah,
When you take on responsibility then you become a man. Like that one defining attribute um, is what I, separate boys from men.
Sure.
So as far as like male virgins, I don't know. I don't know how that would apply because that's not like the defining attribute for the difference between a boy and a man,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Maybe someday I'll do a full video essay and completely deconstruct the concept of male virginity. But but since it does run tangential to a lot of the topics we've been talking about, I thought it'd be interesting to bring up as a little sidebar to cap it off.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought, one I hadn't ever considered before. And yeah, it's yeah. I mean, I don't like that kind of modern red pill metaphor about like a lock that's opened by a bunch of keys is a shitty lock,
Yeah,
and then like a key that can open a bunch of locks is a master key, and that being applied towards men and women and sexual
yeah, that's a little
morality.
passe.
I hate I don't like that,
Yeah,
and I don't agree with it. Um, just because, yeah, whatever. Even if we were acknowledging some of those statistics that the red pill pickup guys like to harp about, the fact is that men are still able to lose their ability to pair bond too,
right.
right? Like pornography is a huge, huge. What's the word I'm looking for?
Drug. Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah.
It's a drug. It's a drug, and
Poison, weapon.
yeah, yeah. And as you become an addict, it lowers your ability to function in a healthy relationship.
Yeah. Well, I want
Yeah, I don't
to.
know if there's male virgins, but now
Yeah,
I'm going to be thinking about
yeah.
it.
I think I'm ready to pull the plug on the male virgin idea. I think there's no such thing. Male virginity, fake and gay. You heard it here first. Anyway, I want to thank you for your time. This has been a great conversation. The book is The Stead Pill. You can find it on Amazon. Buy it now. Read it once, read it twice, read it three times.
Dog
Um,
ear it, come back to it, use it as
yeah,
a guidebook.
it's a handbook, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's a manual.
yeah, and maybe I'll have you on again sometime. Maybe when I'm a big streaming star, I'll have you on to do some trad dating advice, love guru type segment or
Sounds good.
something. Yeah,
Yeah, and maybe that'll be after you move to Iowa and you're like out in the dating scene, and we can pull from your personal experience.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I had a great time, Ben. Thanks for coming on, and we'll do it again sometime.
All right, thanks for having me.
Yeah, have a good one.